I want to make a quick cultural observation off the bat. I want to put to you that I think many of you would agree, that there is a sort of cocktail in our culture and our generation that we're craving and that we are consuming. And this cocktail has maybe more, but at least 3 ingredients. Number 1, we want to be set apart from others and have a unique identity. Boom, it's a big part of who we are. Number 2, we want to stand out with our achievements and be the greatest in various fields and things like that. Number 3, we want to rule. We are a generation who really wants to be influencers, not be influenced. We're the generation that invented influencers. They didn't exist, as like a thing before then, but that's us. Why are we consuming it? Why are we consuming this cocktail as a culture and a generation? There's probably lots of answers. Perhaps we have a fear of insignificance for whatever reason. Perhaps we fear rejection and crave acceptance like no other generation has. But here's the question I just want to put to you. And it's a self-diagnosis question for where you're at right now, and also a question about the cultural narrative. But it's basically this, and it'll come up on the screen right now. Do you need to be unique, great, and influential? Do you need to be unique, great, and influential? Because what if this cocktail is totally poisoned? What if it's totally poisoned? What if instead of us consuming the cocktail as we're drinking it is completely consuming us? And what if all the elements are actually combining together to slowly destroy us as individuals in a multitude of ways, running us dry, and also designed to just destroy relationships at the same time? And if that is the case, is there an antidote that we can find for ourselves? Is there an antidote that we can find for our friends, our family, our culture, to stop a trend that could be quite poisonous and quite harmful? If you're joining us for the first time today, we are busy in a preaching series called Investigating Jesus in Luke's Gospel. And Luke was writing his gospel in the first century to a guy called Theophilus, who was either a new believer or a near believer. But this guy asked Luke to go and do all the research, speak to the eyewitnesses, get all the oral testimonies, bring it down, because this guy Theophilus wanted certainty about what he had heard. He had heard that a lot of prophecies were being fulfilled in this guy Jesus, and lots of wild stuff was going on in the Middle East. And he thought, I think there's something in this, but can you go and do some research for me so I can be sure about putting my neck on the line over this person, Jesus? So Luke went and he wrote this orderly account for Theophilus and for us. And last week was the first sort of part of his orderly account, the first historical scene that he recorded. And if you weren't here, it was about Gabriel coming from God to announce the birth of John the Baptist. John the Baptist was going to be Jesus' cousin. And so the angel came, and he came to this elderly couple, Zechariah and Elizabeth, from a Jewish priestly sort of family. They were faithful servants of God. And what happened was Zechariah was praying in the temple, in the holy place, in the holy city in Jerusalem, when Gabriel showed up to answer his prayers for the Messiah, and maybe even for a son for himself that they had struggled to have. And Gabriel rocked up. He addressed Zechariah by name. He told him that although he's old and Elizabeth is old, they are, in their eyes, beyond hope of having a child, but they will conceive. They will conceive. And then Zechariah, he was actually being asked to believe something that had already happened multiple times in the Bible. There's been multiple women who were barren, who God opened their womb. But Zechariah didn't believe. He asked for a sign, and the angel gave him a sign, which was him being mute until the day that John was going to be born. But John was going to be this great baby. Gabriel, he's going to be great before the Lord. He's going to be a prophet. He's going to have a temporary ministry that's going to prepare the way for God himself to come in the flesh. And remarkably, this baby was going to supernaturally be filled with the Holy Spirit from his mommy's womb. Before he was even born, he was going to be filled with the Spirit, and that Spirit was going to lead him to be a preacher to prepare the way for God. That's what you missed, and it's going to play into this week as well. So we are now into the second incident that Luke is recording in his gospel. He's going to record more things that are being fulfilled among the people in the first century. And let me just briefly set it up with a prophecy. Last week we set last week's message up with a prophecy. We need to do it for this week. 700 years before Jesus, before the time of our story, God spoke through the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah said a lot of things, but for today, I want to highlight this. Isaiah was speaking on God's behalf to a king who didn't believe God was going to come through and save Israel at the time. And so God said, cool, I'm going to give you a sign that's going to come one day so that you will know as my people that I am on the move, that my salvation plans for Israel, but actually for the world, are starting to unfold. And Isaiah prophesied that the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and you shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. And a few chapters later, Isaiah carries on prophesying. He says, hey, in the land beyond the Jordan, in Galilee of the nations, salvation is going to come. Light is going to break into the darkness, and peace is going to come. And it's going to come into a place that doesn't represent Israel. It's Galilee of the nations. It represents the whole world. And he said, into this place and this time, a child is born. To us a son will be given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end. On the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. There's a sign, a virgin's going to conceive, a child's going to come. The child is going to be from the kingly line of David. It's going to be God in the flesh, and he's going to set up his kingdom forever. And that is going to set up our sermon today. We're going to just walk through Luke's passage today. We'll pull out 3 points at sort of stopping points as we go. So let's get into the story. Luke 1, verses 26. We'll just comment as we go. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth. The angel Gabriel is like the Terminator. He is back. And it's 6 months since Elizabeth fell pregnant with John the Baptist. And as I say, we're in the region of Galilee. We're going to put a map up on the screens. This week, Sam and I were at a preaching workshop, and they said, you don't want to geek out and just show maps to all your people. But I was like, I'm going to show another map to the people. So, this is the ancient Middle East. This is basically what used to be the Kingdom of Israel. And this is what it looked like in the 1st century. Last week, I showed you a map of Judea, and the scene took place in Jerusalem. Today, we are way up north, far away, in the place called Galilee, which we'll actually spend most of our time in for the first half of the Gospel of Luke. And you'll see up there, the X is Nazareth. Let's talk about Nazareth briefly. Nazareth, it's in Galilee. Galilee is a mixed bag. It's got faithful religious Jews. It's got confused Jews who have left Judaism but not quite, and it's got Gentiles who completely are not Jewish and worship all sorts of different gods, maybe even secularism to a degree. It's a mixed bag. It truly does represent the nations. But Nazareth is an absolute nowhere, dead-end little village. It had a population of probably less than 100 people at the time. It's got that perfect small town syndrome where, and in this case, everybody knows everyone's business. It's 100 people. It's a little bit bigger than this room right now. Everybody knows everybody's business. Has anyone here heard of or been to Ntabankulu? 1.5 people. Thank you, you've made my point. Nazareth is the Ntabakulu of the day. I researched what is the smallest town that no one's ever heard of in South Africa, and that is it. It's to just give you the context. None of you knew about it, and none of you previously have cared about it. You can, if you want to, from now on. I'm sure they're great people, but just hardly anyone knows that that place exists. That's Nazareth. Verse 27, and Gabriel came to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. I don't know what your views of Mary have been, and I'll keep issuing ideas of who Mary really was as we go through the sermon. But for now, it's good to know she was probably in her early teens. Most of the research says she was likely to be between 12 and 14. Some guys even say earlier. She lived in this poor, small town. She herself was poor, and she probably lived a really, really hard life. She was almost certainly illiterate, and she certainly had zero status in that culture at the time. That's who Mary was. And she was betrothed to a guy called Joseph. Betrothal is it's a step that we've removed from our process of engagement and marriage these days. So you essentially would have had engagement where the parents would have made the agreement and bride prices were paid. Then you would have moved to betrothal where all the agreements were 100% done. It's kind of like the legal work of the marriage. But then a year later, the marriage would be consummated after a marriage ceremony. Betrothal is a step up from engagement. It's actually essentially much more like marriage than it is engagement. To break off a betrothal was to require divorce, essentially. And we hear, and I'll speak later briefly about the fact that Joseph was considering that after he found out a bunch of things. Joseph is from the line of David. Ding, 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 ding. We just read the prophecy from Isaiah. But I don't want to assume that anyone here has a church background, or at least everyone here has a church background. 1,000 years before this scene with Jesus, 300 years before the Isaiah prophecy, King David was the great king of Israel. And God made a promise to him that his line would survive, and there would one day be a king who would come from the line of David. God was going to establish a dynasty, and that king was going to sit on David's throne and rule forever. That's the prophecy that we heard in Isaiah. He was riffing on that. But at this point in history, there's not been a king from David's line on the throne of Israel or Judah for 600 years. 600 years. The line of David exists, as we can see, but no one has ascended to the throne for a long, long time. And the Jewish people are in this state of waiting for puzzle pieces of history to fall into place and for various prophetic words to be fulfilled. And this is one of them. Their hope is that this king, this Messiah king, is going to come, he's going to ascend to the throne, and he's going to overthrow the Roman oppressors that have them under their boot right now. For Israel in the first century, that's the scope of their hope. The king's going to come and overthrow Rome. And Gabriel came, and Gabriel said to her, "Greetings, O favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was greatly troubled at the saying, and tried to discern what sort of greeting this might be. And the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God." You have found favor with God. Luke juxtaposes these scenes here from Zechariah and Mary. Okay? Instead of Gabriel coming to a priest in the holy place, in the holy temple, in the holy city, in the holy land of the Jews, to respond to a prayer made at the hour of prayer, he comes to nobody in a nothing town in the middle of nowhere. The contrast could not be starker. He doesn't even come to the man from the line of David. He comes to Mary. Last week we said, hey man, this priest Zechariah, he looks pretty humble compared to King Herod, who was the fake puppet king ruling over Israel at this time. In comparison to even Zechariah, Mary is on a whole other level of lowly. And based on nothing that she has done, not based at all on who she is, she finds favor with God. God declares her as favored one. And right here is where we want to pause and just draw out something, because we learn something absolutely critical, crucial about how God interacts relationally with us as humans. He deals with us based on his grace. That's the first thing I want to pull out. God's grace. God's grace. God works through sovereign grace. That's his economy. When it comes to relating with God, he does not operate on a system of merit. He does not operate on a system of performance. His economy is one of grace. We do not earn God's favor at all. God in his grace can come to anyone he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants. He's free to do that. That's what I mean by sovereign. He operates in sovereign grace. And this is just completely countercultural to how we do relationships so often in our culture. It's just completely different. It's not on the same wavelength. Just think with me. If you desire relational acceptance with people in this world, the best way to do that, what you often need to do, is give them what they want. To give them what they want, right? If you achieve greatness in something, you can be accepted by the group who appreciates greatness of that kind, right? You want to be accepted by the peers in your field of whatever it might be. Achieve something great and you'll be in the club. You'll be in the club. Think of identity, man. People say, man, if you identify like me, you can be a part of our tribe, right? Subcultures are a beautiful thing, but that's how they operate. If you pick your little niche subculture thing that sets you apart from everyone else in the world, and you identify like that, and you will find your little tribe of your subculture. Whether it's the board game crew, whether it's a political cause, whether it's a big culture like the Springboks, who thankfully won yesterday. If you're a politician, just give the people what they want. You'll be tight. You'll get their vote. And we know what can happen with this economy, because I think we've all lived it in some shape or form. If you stop achieving, if you stop identifying, if you stop giving, you're out. The relationship status will change, sometimes almost immediately. Many of us might have painful memories from high school, because that is where this just works its way out perfectly. Oh, you're no longer like this crowd. Boom, you are ostracized, you are out. The flip side is also very unfortunate. You can achieve great success, you can break into the group, but then your success can be viewed as a threat, and tall poppy syndrome kicks in, and we want to cut you down because now you're breaking from the pack too much. Either way, this is how this type of relating happens. Not so with God. Not so with God. So no matter who you are in the room today, whether you're a Christian, whether you're not a Christian, whether you are religious in some shape or form, whether you are a complete wild child, whether you are spiritual, whether you are skeptical, can I say this? If you are making a name for yourself, don't be fooled. It means nothing to God. It means nothing to God. Your achievements don't impress God. Your self-created identity doesn't impress God. You can be the most influential influencer YouTube will ever see, and it doesn't impress God. You can rule the world. You can build companies. You can build buildings and build legacies. It won't move the needle of the dial 1 inch. 1 inch. You can be good and moral and be a better person than everybody else in the room, and it won't move the needle of God's dial 1 inch. You can be a Christian religious person doing all the works of church and Bible reading and leading or preaching or whatever, or you can be doing the sort of secular works of, supporting the right causes and sharing the right posts and throwing rubbish in the right colored bins. It won't move the needle on God's dial 1 inch. Every other religious system says the favor of God or the higher power will come upon those who merit it. That's how it works. That's how it works. If you're making a name for yourself, don't be fooled. But conversely, if you today, or a lot of the time, feel like you don't have much to offer, you don't have much to offer God, you don't have much to offer anyone else, be super encouraged right now. Be super encouraged right now. If you have nothing impressive in terms of work achievements or relationship achievements, if your Instagram feed is unlikely to make anyone jealous, if you come from somewhere that people might pity or they've never heard of, if you're not flush with cash, if you didn't go to the right school, if you find yourself in an area where you don't fit in, maybe you're not the right color, if you don't have as many degrees as Celsius and Fahrenheit, be encouraged. Be encouraged. None of that can stop God's grace from meeting you. None of it. None of it. In fact, I would even go so far as to say it could even help. It could even help. I don't want to push this point too hard because God is sovereign, as I said. He can break into anyone's lives, rich, poor, famous, obscure. But you track through the scriptures and the grace of God does seem to flow disproportionately to one group of people in the world, of which Mary is an example. The Apostle James told us that God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. The humble. We will find grace in our lives. We can find the unmerited favor of God crashing into our lives. Often, most likely, when our lives are at their worst, when we are at our most broken, when we are at our weakest, when we are most vulnerable, when we are at our most humble, God can break in. The economy of God, when it comes to relationship with Him and plans for our lives, they are based on His grace. They're not based on your skills. They're not based on your spiritual gifts. They're not based on your identity. God was not responding to Mary. God didn't owe Mary anything. God bestowed favor and blessing upon her based on nothing that she did. But that's just Gabriel's intro. Luke 1, 31 to 37. Let's carry on. And behold, Mary, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. He will be great, and he will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give to him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end. And Mary said to the angel, how's this going to happen, since I'm a virgin? And the angel answered her, the Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you, and therefore the child to be born will be called Holy, the Son of God. And behold, your relative Elizabeth, in her old age, has also conceived a son. And this is the 6th month with her who is called barren, for nothing will be impossible with God. Massive moment, big moment. God has sovereignly chosen Mary to play one of, if not the most pivotal part in God's plan and human history, right? Isaiah's long prophesied sign that God's salvation plan for Israel and the world is here, and Gabriel says, it's you, Mary, you are the sign. You are the sign. The virgin will conceive a son, and his name is going to be Jesus, which means God saves. God saves. And I want to say the greatest favor and grace that God can bestow upon any human being is to give us his son, Jesus, and reveal to us exactly who he is. And so that's the second thing that I want to do now. We're going to camp out speaking about God's son, what Gabriel reveals about him. 3 things that I'm just going to run through here. The first is God's son, Jesus. I don't think I'm putting these subpoints up on the screen. Jesus is the promise-fulfilling Messiah. He's the promise-fulfilling Messiah. Jesus is quite clearly the one Isaiah and others all spoke about. But I want to make this point. Jesus is the fulfillment of legitimate prophecy. One of the most beautiful things about modern archaeology is that it keeps proving the Bible true. The more we dig, the more we have confidence in the Bible. And there were so many scholars in the 1800s who were saying, no. People all stuck this stuff into the prophet Isaiah after there was a miraculous birth from Jesus. Doesn't mean that he's necessarily the Son of God. Doesn't necessarily mean he is the promise-fulfilling Messiah. There are some other religions that even claim Jesus had a virgin birth. But here's the beautiful thing. 1947, a dig is happening in a place called Qumran near the Dead Sea. And they find a scroll of Isaiah, the whole thing, from 150 years before Jesus was born. And boom, behold, the virgin shall conceive. Like Luke was writing to Theophilus to give him confidence, I want to keep giving us confidence in Jesus and in the Word. He's the prophesied Messiah Christ. Those are the same word. It just means one anointed by God's Spirit, and he's the one anointed by God's Spirit who is the promised king from the house of David, who's going to reign over Israel and who will faithfully rule on God's behalf, and his kingdom is going to go way beyond Israel, because once every other kingdom has perished, his kingdom will keep going. He's going to be the king of the world. He's the one who's going to usher in salvation. And the Jews at this time, in the years ahead, and even today, they expected their Messiah to be purely political. I said earlier, the scope of their hope was that the Messiah was going to come, the king was going to ascend to the throne, and he was going to deliver people from their oppressive overlords, namely Rome. But Jesus reveals what the Messiah is really going to be about, and what the Messiah is really going to do. He's going to come, and he's not just going to set the people of Israel right, he's going to set the whole human race right. Right? His salvation is one that he is going to effect and he is going to achieve, not by sitting on a throne, but by going to the cross. Not to deal primarily with external problems and external oppressors, but with internal problems, with internal oppressors, namely Satan and sin. Jesus is on a whole other level in terms of role and titles and callings, all right? And I just want to compare again to last week. Gabriel came and said, John the Baptist, he's going to be great before the Lord. Today he says Jesus will be great, period, because he is the Lord. John's going to come, he's going to have a prophetic role. It's going to be preparation, it's going to be temporary. Jesus' role is going to be eternal, and he will reign forever. John's going to come, something amazing is going to happen. He's going to be filled with the Holy Spirit from his womb. Jesus is going to come. He's going to be created in the womb by the Holy Spirit. John was healing that needed to happen. This was effectively creation that needed to happen. Jesus just levels up John on every single point. And that's what I want to say. Jesus is not just a big deal. Jesus is the biggest deal. Jesus is the biggest deal. Secondly, God's Son, Jesus, he's a unique human being. You don't need the prophecy to ask questions about a virgin birth. That raises a whole bunch of other questions of itself, right? You don't need to grasp necessarily the significance of Jesus' roles and titles to be a bit wonderstruck and confused about the miracle of this conception. And I want to highlight that because Gabriel does. Jesus was uniquely brought into being as a human. He's completely different. As I say, Zechariah and Elizabeth, conception was beyond hope. Here, conception was beyond possibility. Beyond possibility. How did this happen? We'll just go with what we've got. The Holy Spirit's going to come upon Mary, and the power of God is going to overshadow her. Now, it's going to sound really weird to say this, but can I just make a clarification? Because people have tried to make this argument. God did not have sex with Mary. It feels super weird to even say that, but I'm just going to say it. That's not what happened. What we have is an image of cloud hovering. Like when the Holy Spirit hovered over the waters at creation. Like when the cloud came down on Mount Sinai when God came to give the law to Moses. Like when the presence of God in a cloud descended upon the tabernacle and the temple and filled the holiest of holies. It's a sign that God is breaking in. God himself is showing up. The Son of God, who has coexisted with God the Father for all eternity, is taking on flesh. Like Adam, created at the beginning by direct intervention of God, who kind of became a head of the human race, so now Jesus is begotten by God in a new beginning by direct intervention of God to start a whole new human race. Jesus is a unique human being. Third thing, Jesus' life will be full of the possibilities of God. Right? Gabriel says it there. Nothing will be impossible with God, right? The conception is just the beginning. The conception is just the beginning. This is not the end of the story. This is the beginning. Jesus is going to come and he's going to demonstrate the power of God in healings and miracles and casting out demons. There is lots of that good stuff that we are going to get into in the Gospel of Luke. But it's going to culminate then in his resurrection. In his resurrection. Jesus is going to go to the cross. He's going to defeat sin. He's going to defeat Satan. And he's going to defeat death by the power of God. And he's going to be raised to life in an eternal body, which will allow him to reign over humanity forever. And the same Jesus that Gabriel announced to Mary is being announced to every single one of us right now. Whether you're a Christian or not, God is announcing to you freshly or for the first time who his son is. 2 weeks ago, we made the case that Jesus was man and not myth. Today we're saying, yeah, but he's also no ordinary man. He is no ordinary man. No one else in human history compares to Jesus. Not Moses, not Muhammad, not the Buddha. Okay? The virgin birth and everything it stands for puts Jesus in a unique category of his own. Jesus is set apart. Jesus is holy. That's what that means. He's holy. He's the Son of God. And yet, he's humble. He's humble. Our God, full of might and power, became a poor boy in a poor family from a small town in a despised area. Jesus is the greatest, most influential, most unique person who's ever lived, and he's humble. And in fact, his uniqueness is going to be displayed in the way he rules. He's going to rule by serving. He's going to reign by dying. And if you've never realized who Jesus truly is, the invitation for you today is to change your mind. Whatever you thought of Jesus before, if it's not this, change your mind. Do an about turn. Get your eyes off wrong views of Jesus, but the invitation is also to get your eyes off yourself. And this goes for all of us. To get our eyes off ourselves, off our pursuits of trying to be unique and great and influential, that drive underneath a lot of things we do, and to fix our eyes on Jesus. Fix our eyes on Jesus. If you want to figure out God and you want to get to know God, you're here, you're not a Christ follower, you're asking questions, you do it through Jesus. You do it through Jesus. You follow Jesus. You submit to Jesus and his influence. You trust Jesus. And you'll be transferred from your old humanity to a new humanity. You'll be transferred from a bunch of other kingdoms, maybe your own kingdom that you're trying to build, and you'll be transferred to the glorious eternal kingdom. You'll trade a ruler either of your own name or of your passions and desires and drives. You'll trade those things for Jesus, a different ruler. If you're a Christ follower, and maybe you're at a point you just recognize today, here I am, and I know that I have just been coasting for the last while. I've been coasting in my spiritual journey. I am feeling like I'm not making any progress. I feel like I'm not maturing at all in my walk with God like I would like. Could it be you've lost your awe in the person of Jesus? Could it be you've been too focused on yourself and setting yourself apart and making a name for yourself and trying to be influential? And you've been focusing on yourself and not him. And if that's so, the invitation is see him again freshly. See him again freshly today. Receive him again freshly. Receive him for who he truly is. Get lost in his greatness and his influence and his uniqueness. It takes the pressure off you needing to be. Last verse. Verse 38. And Mary said, "Behold, I am the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word." And the angel departed from her. We chatted about God's grace. We've chatted about God's Son. I want to chat now briefly about Mary, God's servant. God's servant. The Catholic Church really has elevated Mary into, I'll just say, a heretical level. Okay? She's become a dispenser of grace rather than a receiver of grace. She's become a mediator between us and God rather than the mother of our mediator, the one person who mediates between God and man, Jesus Christ. She's become sinless rather than a fellow sinner in need of grace. And even she's become one who remained virgin forever, which is just not true if you read the Gospels. Jesus had brothers. She had relations with Joseph. But here's the thing. We as Protestants, we can and maybe have overreacted to that. And so we don't want to be people who make too much of Mary, but neither do we want to be people who make too little of her. And that's what we want to do today. We shouldn't worship Mary, we shouldn't pray to Mary, but we should honor Mary, because in this story it's revealed so clearly. Mary is an amazing example of faith. She's an incredible example of faith, right? She's been tasked by God with the most monumental task imaginable. Can you imagine a bigger task? Okay? Give birth to and raise the divine Son of God. Give birth to the one who gave birth to the universe, and teach and raise the one who gave us the law of God. Go for it, Mary. You got this. Put yourself in Mary's shoes just for a second. Okay? The script that she was busy writing for her life just got completely flipped. Completely flipped. And think of the consequences. Imagine the stories that are going to spread in small town Nazareth and Galilee. Can you imagine the reputation that is ahead of Mary? Not the reputation that we now have as Christians 2,000 years later, the reputation a couple of months later, a couple of years later. Because either people are going to say that she is crazy when she says she's showing, but she's not married, when she says it's God's child, God impregnated me, or something to that effect. They're going to think she's an absolute fruitcake, or they're going to do the math, and she's going to be condemned for getting knocked up out of wedlock. Those are kind of the big options, right? Those are the big options. You go read Matthew's gospel, and it actually tells us that Joseph did not want to believe that this was the case. Well, he didn't believe that this was the case. And so Matthew tells us that Joseph resolved to divorce her quietly as to not bring shame upon her. But an angel came to Joseph to reassure him, don't divorce her. She hasn't been unfaithful. What she says is true. John also records that people used to say to Jesus, at least we know who our Father is. Burn. People knew. Joseph is not your biological daddy. Imagine the emotions Mary felt on this day, looking ahead, and imagine all the emotions she felt in all the various points for the next 30 years, where no doubt people said lots of things about her. And yet her response is not, Gabriel, how is this going to affect me? She asks a question about how it's going to happen. It's not a lack of trust like last week. And then she trusts in the power of God and declares herself his humble servant, and that she will submit to his word. And that is the invitation for us. Mary is an amazing model of faith, and that's the invitation. That's the call. It's the call for all of us today. I've said if you're not a Christ follower, you're here, I want you to follow Jesus, but I want to say it freshly to all of us who say that we follow Jesus. Submit to God and find freedom. Find freedom from the opinion of others, because Mary was going to need to do that. There was going to be a lot of opinions about who she was. Submit to God and find freedom, because the call is not to submit to a tyrant. It's not to submit to some sort of self-serving politician. No, the grace of God is on offer to each and every one of us in the unique person of Jesus, the Son of God, the anointed King, the one who is the instrument of God's salvation for you. He's the one who embodies the fact that God is with us. And he's not just with us, he's with you and he's with me. No one in this room needs to be great. You don't need to be great. You don't need to be unique. You don't need to be influential. In fact, honestly, setting your sights on those things, and I know we all do often, but setting our sights on those things could just kill us and drive us into the ground. The beautiful irony of the story is that Mary is now one of the most influential figures, if not the most influential woman who's ever lived. She wasn't seeking it. And that's why it didn't kill her and crush her. We've got this obsession, I think, as human beings to basically achieve godlike status, to be set apart among the regulars, the norms, right? And to be elevated and glorified, in a sense to become like God, and yet the real God, in contrast, has become like us. It's a complete flip. It's a complete flip. Submit to the one who is truly unique, who's truly great, whose kingdom you really want to be in. His kingdom is going to last forever. Whatever kingdom you create is going to burn. Whatever kingdom you swear allegiance to now is not going to last. But if you give yourself to something that is everlastingly great, that is everlastingly influential, you'll find your life. You'll find freedom. You'll find peace. We've got to lay down our pride in order to do that. We need to lay down our hunt for significance. And we've got to, like Mary, find humility and come before Jesus and get lost in him. And get lost in him. And actually be deployed to display his uniqueness and his greatness and to spread his influence. It's way better. I'm going to ask the band to come on up.